Did you miss an episode earlier this year? Well, you're in luck because today we're going to do a recap of the headlines and the fine print from the year that was 2024. Hello and welcome to Headlines and Fine Print. I'm Dion Williams, President and CEO of Piedmont Advantage Credit Union. And today we're going to cover kind of like a lightning round of the year that was in 2024. We're going to talk about a little bit of the topics that we touched on throughout the year. So not in the depth that we did earlier in the year. So if something resonates with you, we invite you to go to our YouTube channel or Spotify, where all of our episodes from the year are archived. And also on our website, at pacu.com, we generally accompany our video and audio episodes with a written blog, so you can read it in that version as well. And that contains some links and more information if you want to do a deeper dive on any of our topics. And if you're on our YouTube or Spotify channel, also invite you to follow us, like us, and share us if you're so inclined, so we can reach a broader audience with our message. So with no further ado, let's jump into it. So earlier this year, we kind of kicked it off with scams. Now, scams this time of year is kind of the holiday season and when folks are very charitably inclined. So at this time of year, there's a lot of opportunities for bad actors to try to take advantage of your better nature. So first and foremost, the fine print of scams is if something sounds too good to be true, it probably is. So exercise caution. Don't be embarrassed about performing your due diligence. If you're not sure about who's contacting you, be sure to call back a number that you're familiar with or visit a website that you're familiar with, and understand that scams can take many forms. It can be phone, it can be text, it can be email, it can even be somebody showing up on your doorstep. And especially with it being the holiday season, and again with the hurricane in Western North Carolina and some other parts of the Southeast, there's a lot of bad actors trying to take advantage of that. So just be very careful about how you are giving and where you're giving to make sure that it's going exactly where you want it to and for the intended purpose that you had in mind. And one of the other fine print items with scams is that those folks will use high pressure as their number one technique. They have to have your information now. You have to commit now. No, you don't. And if somebody's doing the high pressure, that is definitely a red flag to take a pause, step back, and just take your own time on doing your research and making sure your money, your hard-earned money, is going where you intend it for. We did a show on debt management, debt settlement, and debt consolidation. So let me run through those real quick for you. So debt consolidation, let's say you have 2 or 3 credit cards, you've ran up a little bit of a balance on it. So you come to the credit union or another financial institution, and you're simply putting those balances together for one payment and a set term. Generally, you're getting a lower interest rate and a better payment structure for that. The fine print, of course, with debt consolidation is make sure you don't run those balances up again, because the good work that you've done in putting those together can be quickly undone if you run it up and you have multiple payments and multiple interest rates that you're dealing with again. So next, let's talk about debt management plans. So with a debt management plan, you could be engaging a third party who is negotiating with creditors on your behalf. You're going to have to close out the credit cards and the loan accounts that you're including in the plan. You're paying back the full principal amount, but they're actually negotiating a lower interest rate and better payment structure for you. Generally, you're out of these plans within 60 months or 5 years. So again, the benefit of it is lower interest, lower payment. You do see the light at the end of the tunnel where you're paying off the debt, and you are, again, paying back the full amount of principal that you owe those creditors. Now, debt settlement is a little bit more serious in terms of impact to your credit report, because with debt settlement, the first thing you're going to be instructed to do by the third party is quit making payments. Now, by doing that, that's going to have some past dues show up on your credit report, and that can have some impact to your future ability to obtain credit. However, with that, by not paying, those creditors are going to work with you on a reduced payback amount to repay what you owe them on that agreed upon amount. But again, this one can be the most detrimental to your credit because you are letting it go past due to get into those negotiations for a lower payback amount, and you're not paying back the full amount. We have certified credit counselors at PACU that'd be more than happy to talk with you about these options. So no matter where you are on that spectrum with debt, we would love the opportunity to help you out, talk about what options are best for you short term and long term, because the decisions you make today can definitely have longer term implications. We did a show on budgeting, and if you listen to more than one or two shows this year, you know one of my favorite themes is pay yourself first. And there I said it again. So probably every single episode of the year I've said pay yourself first. But that's rule number one of budgeting. And let's think about that in two ways. Number one is your emergency fund, and number two is set aside some money for retirement. If you have an employer that does a match on your 401k or your retirement plan, that is free money. So definitely take advantage of that. And remember, with emergencies, it's not all emergencies are created equal, and it's not a zero-sum game. So if you have $1,000 set aside and your emergency is $1,200, at least you've got $1,000 of that $1,200 set aside. And a lot of times folks can run into trouble if it's a credit card or a personal loan. That is their emergency fund, because that's not as readily available as having money set aside in a savings account for your convenience. Now, also in our budgeting episode, we talked about a couple of other concepts. One is bundling. And if you watch any television, you've seen commercials about bundling your insurance, whether that's an automobile and homeowner. Sometimes you can get some discounts that way. But bundling goes beyond that realm as well. Cable, internet, and phone, that's a bundle that kind of comes to mind, that if you put all of those with the same carrier, sometimes you can get some good discounts with that. And the other thing I would advise on budgeting is subscriptions. So if you use Apple or Google and you have subscriptions that hit your phone, be sure to check out what those are. If you have other subscriptions that's flowing through your checking account, a debit card, or a PayPal, one of those platforms, just audit those once in a while, because sometimes you sign up for something and you're not using it anymore. You forget about it. It's like, oh, well, it's $5 a month, whatever. But $5 a month is $60 a year. And you throw that out over multiple subscriptions. That's a lot of money. So be sure to go through that. I know in my household, I talk with my kids and say, so this subscription for this channel, I know you did the 7-day because you wanted to watch a particular show or something, but are you using that? Is that something we need to continue to pay for? So just periodically audit your subscriptions, because that could be some quote unquote found money that can help you out. Okay, we went on through the year to talk about couples and money, and that was a fun show, because with couples and money, it all comes down, here's the headline, here's the fine print. It's all about communication. It's okay if you have different financial goals. It's okay if you have different financial values, but communication is where you find that common ground, where you find where and how you're going to compromise to move forward. Because otherwise, if you think about you're going somewhere in a boat, you have to be rowing in the same direction to get to that destination. So it's perfectly okay if you have differences of opinion on some things, but the communication up front is very important, so you can kind of know where you want to go with the money, what your long-term goals are, what your short-term goals are, and differences can actually balance out one another. I always say that conflict can be a productive thing. It's okay to have conflict if you're going through that process in a way that leads to a better conclusion and strengthens the relationship going forward. And we transition from couples and money to estate planning is for everyone. So with estate planning is for everyone, what I mean by that is you don't have to be rich to have a will. You don't have to be rich to do any form of estate planning, because I'm going to give you an example, and we talked about this in depth on that episode, of why it matters. So we'll say that you're a family with young children and something happens to both parents. Your will is the way that you convey your wishes for custodial care and upkeep of your kids. Otherwise, it's going to be determined probably in the court, and it may or may not turn out as to how you would have wanted it if you had to say so. So again, it doesn't matter if you have $1 million or a nickel to your name. The custodial care is something that's a very important reason to have at least a basic will. Furthermore, there's advanced healthcare directives and powers of attorney that they're triggered by an event, maybe a medical event, and that way your finances are accessible to someone on your behalf to help pay for your care. But in terms of healthcare directives, do not resuscitate order, if you wanted to be kept alive by artificial means and how long. Those are some of the things that are covered under that scope. So again, and hopefully making the point that it doesn't matter how much money you do or don't have, that there's lots of reasons to engage at least in a basic level of estate planning. Now, we did another episode in the year on credit freezes. So obviously we talk a lot about budgeting and credit, and what precipitated the episode on credit freezes is that yet another large data breach was announced. And if you're listening to this podcast, chances are you have been impacted at some point in your life by a data breach. I know I've been impacted by multiple ones. And so you're almost numb to it at this point. But we talked about what you can do to protect yourself if that happens. And the credit freeze is one tool. So if someone gets personal identifying information from you and they're trying to get credit in your name, what you can do with the credit freeze is that blocks your credit report from being accessed. So that's going to be a red flag if someone's trying to pull it. They can see the freezes there, and that's going to stop the attempt in its tracks. Now, this was another episode where we said, don't forget about the kids. And you're like, well, my 5-year-old's not trying to apply for credit. And bad actors know that. But that's why if they can get a hold of a social security number and a name and address and create some fictitious information to go with that to get credit under that social security number, it may be years before that child is applying for their first credit card, their first car loan, trying to rent an apartment, student loans, you name it. And that's when they realize there's a problem years later. So you can, as a guardian or an adult, you can freeze your kids' credit until they're at an age and stage where they would actually be applying for credit on their own. So that was a really good episode, and we have a good blog post on that one about how you can check your credit, because it's also important to monitor your credit, annualcreditreport.com, and there's a lot of free services out there as well. Not so worried about the credit score part of it, but worried about the credit content. Are those accounts showing on there actually things that you signed up for, that you're obligated for, and are they accurately reflected? We did a very recent episode on end of year finances. And really with that, we said that Santa was not the only person making a list. So be sure think about when you go to the grocery store, it's not a good idea to go when you're hungry because everything looks good. So when you go do your holiday shopping, have a list, have a budget, stick to it, and that definitely keeps you on track. We suggested some things such as drawing names with family members, families, and friends, so that way you can limit your spending. Maybe you have a set dollar amount that you're going to spend, and it's only on one person instead of trying to spread that out among 4 or 5 people. So that's definitely one way you limit your expenses over Christmas. We also talked about it doesn't have to be a time of just spending. A lot of retail stores hire seasonal help, so you can earn some money to help offset your expenses, or maybe earn above and beyond that and come out ahead over the holidays. So that's definitely a good tip. And then also club accounts. That's something you can start today, saving money for next year's holiday season. And that way, when you get to that time of year, kind of like the emergency fund, it doesn't matter if you've got $1,000 or $2,000 or $250. It doesn't matter. Anything you have in that account, you've got a head start on what you have to come up with for the current season. So those are definitely really good ideas. And I'll kind of backtrack to the very first topic we talked about on scams. Again, this is a time of year when folks are usually very charitably inclined in terms of their giving, and that's awesome. But just remember that folks try to take advantage of that. So do your due diligence if you're being solicited for a donation, and make sure the money's going where you want it to go and how you want it to go. And also remember that you can give of time in addition to money, because especially like in Western North Carolina right now, there's a big need for volunteers, boots on the ground type things to help with rebuild and clean up and things of that nature. So money helps, but time and manpower, so to speak, also helps as well. So closing thoughts for this episode, again, just wanted to give you a really high level view of things we talked about throughout the year. And a good announcement going into next year is we were going for once a month in 2024, and in 2025 we're going to go for 2 episodes a month. So more content. We definitely want to hear from you. If you have ideas for shows or things you want to hear us talk about, we would love to hear those. My email is dion.williams@pacu.com, and my phone number is 336-750-7088. So be sure to reach out to me if you have questions about an episode that we've done, or if you have a suggestion for a topic for a future episode. And again, if something that you heard today piques your interest and you want to go back on YouTube or Spotify, For more information, we invite you to like the program, follow the program, share the program with friends and coworkers so we can get a bigger audience for this show going forward, because we exist here for you. We want to be a great resource for your financial goals. We want to be your financial partner for life at the credit union. And we do have a lot of product and service solutions to help you along the way. But of course, this information is free, and we want you to benefit from it to make you a very wise financial steward of your money and to see you achieve all of your financial goals. So again, just want to thank you again for being part of Headlines in Fine Print with Dion Williams, brought to you by Piedmont Advantage Credit Union. And I want to wish each of you a happy, healthy, and prosperous new year in 2025. Thank you for listening.